Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Nick Harper and these are the headlines of the hour. Iran condemns as unconstructive its censure by the UN Atomic Energy Agency watchdog for failing to cooperate in a new spat that clouds efforts to revive a deal limiting its nuclear powers. Ukrainian President Zelensky calls for Russia to be expelled from the UN Agriculture Agency and blames Moscow for spurring the global grain crisis by invading Ukraine. Striking power sector workers return to work in Sri Lanka after President promises to listen to their concerns, ending widespread blackouts in the island nation hit by its biggest crisis in decades. India says it's closely monitoring every development at its border with China, even as it continues to engage with Beijing to reach a mutually respectable agreement. A Chinese military jet crashes in the central Hubei province, leaving at least one dead, 2 injured, and many houses on fire. And English football's Premier League suspends its 6-year deal with Russian broadcaster Match TV, according to Britain's Press Association news agency. In the aftermath of the recent mass shootings in both New York and Texas, the US House of Representatives has passed a gun control bill with 223 votes. The bill would raise the minimum age for the purchase of certain firearms. The age limit will be revised to 21 years, up from 18 years. It'll also toughen prohibitions on untraceable guns.
On this vote, the yeas are 223, the nays are 204. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
There have been more than 250 mass shootings in the United States this year alone. The US government has been facing increased pressure to try and pass gun control legislation. However, the latest bill is unlikely to get approval when it faces the Senate. Rather than pushing for a quick vote on the sweeping House bill, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wants to give more time to bipartisan negotiations. The focus will be on improving mental health programs, bolstering school security, and enhancing background checks. Democrats and Republicans are deeply divided on gun reforms. Republicans strongly support the right to keep and bear arms, as protected by the Second Amendment of the US Constitution. They've objected to proposals like the limited sale of assault rifles used in the Uvalde massacre.
The Speaker started by saying this bill's about protecting our kids. That is important. Sure is. That's what she said. Protecting our kids is important. Yes, it is. But this bill doesn't do it. What this bill does is take away Second Amendment rights, God-given rights, protected by our Constitution from law-abiding American citizens. That's what this legislation does, and that's why we should oppose it. Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Well, WION correspondent Susan Tarani is joining us live from New York City to give us more details on this one. Well, Susan, this legislation that has passed the House, it has done so quite easily with support from Democrats, but it's expected to struggle in the Senate. Why is that?
Right, exactly. So the Senate is actually working on a more modest deal that it hopes will pass on a bipartisan line, focusing more on mental health issues in light of the Uvalde shooting, on school safety issues, and also perhaps not so much on universal gun control and universal background checks, but also work on what the House is doing right now, which is the provision to really close the loopholes that effectively ban bump stocks, which is turning regular guns into automatic machine guns. The ban of bump stocks was actually put in place during the Trump administration after that shooting in Las Vegas, you may remember. And the House passed a bill just yesterday, trying to really fill up the loopholes regarding that. The Senate might play up on that. And then there are those red flag laws that we've been talking about. That might probably also get passed in the Senate in some way, shape or form as well. The House is expected to vote on those red flag laws, by the way, today as well. 18 states across the United States have those laws. We'll see whether or not they'll be expanded to other states as well. New York was one of them. And just a caveat there, that Buffalo shooter did sort of fall through the cracks of New York's red flag laws when it went on that shooting spree earlier a few weeks ago.
So, Susan, is there anything more that the White House can do, especially as we've seen President Biden calling for much tougher restrictions, for example, banning assault weapons?
Right. Based on the U.S. Constitution, the states usually have the authority, as we saw, in New York, to really go after legislation like gun control. We saw that, as I mentioned, in New York just recently this week, where it passed sweeping gun control legislation. On a federal level, it's up to the House and the Senate to go ahead and do that, and we're seeing that sort of in action. The president's party controls both House and the Senate, although they do need that 60 vote in the Senate to really pass some kind of federal law. But when it comes to how far the president can go, I think on the Republican side, at least, there was some kind of hope that the president would sort of bring the party together and try to find a unified consensus, because he knows very well that a universal ban on assault weapons would not favor very well for the red states or the Republican Party, yet he still seems to hammer on that issue, and by doing that, it kind of sort of has created more divisions and animosity between the two sides. But both sides are saying that this time is different. The Uvalde shooting really did touch a raw nerve, especially after that heartfelt testimony by the 11-year-old yesterday on Capitol Hill. And I think if anything will be done, it'll definitely be something at least in the line of school safety.
Susan Tarani joining us live from New York City. Thank you, Susan. Well, next today, an 11-year-old survivor of the Uvalde massacre recounted the harrowing details of what she went through. Mia Cirillo testified before a congressional panel, and she revealed that she'd put blood on herself in a bid to survive the shooting. The young girl feels that such an incident might happen again. Parents of other young victims also testified.
There's a door between our classrooms, and he went through there and shot my teacher and told my teacher goodnight and shot her in the head. And then he shot some of my classmates and the whiteboard. When I went to the barracks, he shot my friend that was next to me and I thought he was going to come back to the room, so I grabbed the blood and put it all over me.
My son, Zaire, has a hole in the right side of his neck, 2 on his back, and another on his left leg, caused by an exploding bullet from an AR-15. As I clean his wounds, I can feel pieces of that bullet in his back. Shrapnel will be left inside of his body for the rest of his life. Now I want you to picture that exact scenario for one of your children. This should not be your story or mine.
To celebrate, we promised to get her ice cream that evening. I told her we loved her and we would pick her up after school. I can still see her walking with us toward the exit. In the reel that keeps scrolling across my memories, she turns her head and smiles back at us to acknowledge my promise. And then we left. I left my daughter at that school, and that decision will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Words can't describe how hard it is to bury a child. I ache for anyone and all who have done the same. My son's death was a result of a criminal with an evil heart and a justice system failing to hold him accountable for the laws he had already broken.
US President Joe Biden has announced a new economic partnership with Latin America, but the regional summit has been marred by discord and snubs over the guest list. The partnership aims to counter China's growth. Biden tried to reassure the assembled leaders about his administration's commitment to the region. These assurances come amid concerns that Washington is trying to dictate to its poorer southern neighbours.
Our region is large and diverse. We don't always agree on everything. But because we're democracies, we work through our disagreements with mutual respect and dialogue. At this summit, we have an opportunity for us to come together around some bold ideas, ambitious actions, and to demonstrate to our people the incredible power of democracies.
Biden is seeking to present Latin American countries with an alternative to China. He aims to ramp up US economic engagement, investment, and existing trade deals.
Tonight, I'm announcing a new economic partnership that builds on all the work we have done with the region and will guide our engagement going forward. We're calling it America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity.
As per a senior US administration official, Biden's America's Partnership for Economic Prosperity still appears to be a work in progress. EU officials hope to pave the way for greater cooperation through the summit. The lineup of visiting heads of state and governments for the summit has been narrowed down. This came after Biden excluded Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua. This further prompted Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and several other leaders to stay away in protest. It took the number of 35 member nations down to just 21. This is being seen as a blow for Biden.
Señor, cuando identificamos como tema central a uno de los problemas más
Well, apart from the economic partnership, Biden also highlighted renewable energy investment. He said that the US will lay out a pitch to leaders from the Americas for an environmentally friendly economic partnership. Biden pledged to help economies across the Americas to grow from the bottom up.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
When I hear climate, I think jobs. Good paying, high quality jobs will help speed our transition to a green economy of the future and unleash sustainable growth. Jobs in developing and deploying clean energy, jobs in decarbonizing the economy, jobs in protecting biodiversity of our hemisphere, jobs provide dignity of being able to feed your family, give your children a better life, and envision a future of possibilities.
A 26-year-old man, Nicholas John Roskay, has been charged with attempting to murder Supreme Court Judge Brett Kavanaugh. The man is from California, and reports say that he was upset about mass shootings and abortion rights in the United States. Roskay was arrested outside Kavanaugh's house. He called emergency services to tell them that he was feeling suicidal and had come from California to Maryland to kill the Justice Kavanaugh. Documents filed in federal court say that he was carrying a semi-automatic Glock 17 pistol, a knife and a tactical vest. The FBI affidavit further added that the man was upset about the leak of the recent Supreme Court draft regarding the right to abortion, as well as the recent school shooting in Uvalde.
One of the important things to keep in mind.
So this kind of behavior is behavior that we will not tolerate. Threats of violence and actual violence against the justices, of course, strike at the heart of our democracy, and we will do everything we can to prevent them and to hold people who do them accountable. For that reason, last month, I accelerated the protection of all the justices' residences 24/7. Also last month, I met with the marshal of the court. I convened a meeting with her, as well as with the deputy director of the FBI, with the director of the Marshal Service, and with our own law enforcement, our own prosecutors, to ensure every degree of protection available as possible.
The accused indicated that he believed that the justice he intended to kill would side with Second Amendment decisions that would loosen gun control laws. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy blamed prominent Democratic politicians for inciting the threat. He also called for enhanced security for the justices.
We have a duty to protect the court, the justices, and their families from political violence and intimidation. And we can meet that duty tonight before the House adjourns by sending this bill to the President's desk.
Remember, a draft opinion regarding abortion was leaked last month. It suggested that the court was poised to overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling, which grants women a constitutional right to get abortions if they choose. The leak stoked massive protests. Security has been increased for the justices, and barriers have been erected around the court to prevent protesters from approaching the building. The White House says that President Joe Biden has condemned the incident. The congressional panel investigating the US Capitol riots will outline its findings in the first of several public hearings. It promises explosive new revelations, which it says will link former US President Donald Trump's election plot to the insurrection.
In the year since the House Select Committee began its investigation into the deadly January 6th assault on the Capitol, it has conducted more than 1,000 depositions and interviews and collected over 140,000 documents. Now its findings are ready for primetime.
Every conversation.
The committee will hold public hearings starting Thursday evening, aiming to not only shine a light on the unprecedented attempt to subvert U.S. democracy, but to draw a line of responsibility directly to the White House.
Yes, the committee has found evidence of concerted planning and premeditated activity.
Committee member Representative Jamie Raskin has called the attack nothing less than an attempted coup and said the evidence will show that Donald Trump himself was responsible for his supporters violently trying to overturn his election defeat.
The idea that all of this was just a rowdy demonstration that spontaneously got a little bit out of control is absurd. You don't almost knock over the U.S. government by accident. I think that Donald Trump and the White House were at the center of these events. That's the only way really of making sense of them all.
We're going to have to fight much harder
Trump and his defenders say the former president did nothing wrong as he flirts with running for the White House again. And the Republican National Committee has called the assault, quote, legitimate political discourse. But with just 5 months to go until the November 8th midterm elections, the committee, made up of 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans, will attempt to reverse Republican efforts to downplay or deny the violence of the day. The big task for the committee, says Democratic strategist Simon Rosenberg, is to tell their story well.
I think the committee is very aware that they have an obligation just to tell the story and to make sure that the American people understand what happened to their own country.
The committee has spoken privately with many in Trump's inner circle, including his daughter and son-in-law, as well as Rudy Giuliani, who is Trump's personal lawyer and spearheaded efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Rosenberg said the stakes for the nation couldn't be higher.
Donald Trump is, under suspicion of having committed the gravest crimes against our democracy in American history, and that, he and his team may have betrayed our country in ways that no other set of Americans have in all of our history. We're going to learn a lot more about that, I think, in the coming months.
The big question is, will Americans care? A Washington Post ABC News poll last month found that only 40% of Americans believe the committee is conducting a fair and impartial investigation. And Fox News has already said it will not air Thursday's hearing live.
The United States has approved the sale of ship parts to Taiwan worth $120 million. The step comes amid rising threats of a Chinese invasion of the island of Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry says that the step could ensure combat readiness in the face of China's frequent activities near the island. The US Defense Security Cooperation Agency issued a statement. It said that the sale covered unclassified spare and repair parts for ships and ship systems. It also includes logistical and technical assistance. The US says that the proposed sale will contribute to Taiwan's surface vessel fleet. It will also enhance its ability to meet current and future threats. According to Taiwan's defense ministry, the deal is expected to come into effect within 1 month. Neither of the two sides have given details of what kind of parts Taiwan will be receiving. Most of Taiwan's main warships have been designed and made in the United States. Taiwan has time and again complained of repeated missions by China's Air Force into its air defense zone. China's Navy has also been conducting regular missions near to Taiwan. A 91-year-old Korean War veteran has reunited with his first love after 70 years. With that, we call it a wrap on this edition of WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Nick Harper. I'll be back again, same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Peggy, how are you?
Oh my gosh. Nice to see you.
Yes. Oh.
Thank you for all of that attention. My gosh, that's a long time, eh?
It's been 70 years. Yeah.
You remember the dancing?
Oh yeah. I'm glad you mentioned it first.
It was all that jitterbug.
Yeah, right. Yep. I was scared at first. I thought maybe my mother and Dwayne wouldn't talk like they did, but when they started smiling and talking, and it was all worth it. I've thought about that all my life. That I worried that you thought that I abandoned you. And I'm here to tell you that I didn't abandon you at all. I just couldn't find you. You gave me that picture.
He's able to fulfill his dream, his lifelong dream, to find the woman that he had met and fell in love with and stuff. And 70 years later, what a wonderful story.
For 70 years.
That's what he said.
It's really been a freeing experience for me.
I can remember
Did you feel abandoned?
No. What I sent the package and the reason and all of that. It's, oh my gosh, all these years you saved a picture of me. And oh my gosh, so you must have a thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Many other. This is great, Arab.